big fitness community down here as well, as you're aware.
Yep.
Used to be good buddies with Greg Glassman. I haven't seen him for a little while since things kind of blew up in his world.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So you're in Portland, Chris. Let's just give me a sense for what it's like there, because when you watch the media, it seems like it's freaking anarchy. But everything seems, everything's blown out of proportion. So what is it like for you?
Uh, Literally, I don't know anything about it unless when things were happening, like people would call or message saying, "Hey, are you okay?" And I'd have to go look up the news to find out what's going on.
Right.
So Portland's kind of interesting because you've got this downtown area that is not a it's not the place that you go out or do things in. So it's not like, oh, we're going to go downtown and have a nice dinner.
Right.
It's a business district and it's surrounded by water, and it's just like its own little world. Like just 5 minutes away is completely different, and so that's
Right.
where like everything was really centered around.
Hmm.
And that's where you know it's just I live outside of. I actually don't live in Portland. I'm in one of the suburbs outside of it. We had a comedy series actually a number of years ago called Outer Portlandia,
Oh
kind of
yeah.
a spiff on the Portlandia, but it's and yeah, it's we don't see any of it other than the homelessness has definitely become a problem, which is interesting for me, having grown up being homeless, but then also
Right.
seeing like the communities that are developing and what's going on. And it's a very, very different thing in a lot of areas.
Hmm.
It's just interesting to see that. So, but yeah, the anarchy, the chaos, the whatever you see is literally it's a few block radius in a business district downtown and that's the extent
That's
of it.
it. Yeah. Yeah. It makes for good TV, huh?
Yep.
Interesting. Well, I mean, you just went right into it by talking about growing up homeless. Your book, The Eagle and the Dragon, you talk about your life story, and I think that's a great place to start. But so give us the lowdown on what your childhood was like, and what were some of the major forces that shaped who you are and got you into strength and conditioning.
Yeah. So I definitely grew up a little bit different. I always try to frame it as not necessarily saying it's hard or was harder, and certainly not like harder than anybody else's life. We all have our own struggles and
Right.
strife, but it's a great way to articulate just how far you can move the needle in life
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I did grow up homeless. It was my parents' choice that they didn't want to be part of society and were trying to, forge a path outside of that. And so we were in the mountains in Northern California, and this is living in tents, living in tree forts. People are like, why
Wow.
tree forts? Well, you're in Carlsbad, but there's a lot of rattlesnakes, and you get a little up into those northern area, and so we'd have rattlesnake dens by our house. So that's actually how my book starts out, is me at 6 years old. We've got beams lashed up into the trees. That's where we're sleeping, and I'm being taught how to capture and handle live rattlesnakes at six
Yeah.
years old. And be like, why? Well, they were
Because
part
you
of my
had to.
life. They were
Yeah.
they were around me. I needed to know how to
Right.
protect myself, right?
That's fascinating. Wait. So wait.
And
How's it? So you actually lived in the trees? Your dad built like what platforms to live in, or what is that? What was that like?
yeah, at that time, you'd take three trees and kind of make a triangle. So you'd lash three
Right.
beams between those,
Okay.
and that's where our sleeping was. But that was more of a rare instance. Um, like I said, there was rattlesnake dens like just right all over the place
Hmm.
in that area. But a lot of times it was either tents or during the school year, we'd move closer to town and we'd be, in houses or sometimes a condemned home. Actually, I think not too long after that, we were in a condemned home for like a year. No electricity, no running water, no doors, just a frame of a house that was abandoned,
Wow.
decades before. But sometimes it was, later in life in Oregon, we spent a series of years in some cabins that were like hunting cabins.
Mm-hmm.
So they had electricity, might not have had like running water or toiletry or anything like that. So it was heated by fire. But yeah, a lot of my life grew up, was by candlelight, flashlight, stepping out the back of a cabin to, bathe by pouring water over myself in the snow. During the summer, it was great because we'd fill up all our jugs down in the stream
Right.
and then set them out on a rock all day in the sun and just let those heat up. And then late afternoon, you could have a great shower, taking the gallon jug over your head. So,
That's
but yeah, it was interesting in that fashion because it's like you find out that there's a lot of unsavory characters that maybe are away from society because they had reasons to not be around it, not for the reasons like my parents of trying to just to make their own way. And so during the course of that, yeah, I mean, dealt with murderers. There was a serial killer, and actually in California there was dealt with human trafficking. So if you ever have the opportunity to watch the documentary Murder Mountain on Netflix, that was 50 miles away from one of the areas we spent a couple of years. So when it's talking about serial killers and human trafficking and corrupt police and all this sort of stuff, you'd be like, holy cow. And that's the life that we lived. And so we were taken by the state for a while, me, my three sisters, younger sisters, and my younger brother. And then my parents got us back. We were living in Northern California. They were growing weed. Like that's what we lived out in the mountains.
Okay.
Were
they good parents to you? I mean, did you perceive them to be good parents, or what? I mean, what was the parenting like besides what society would say of them dragging you around without a house?
So yeah, there's a lot of things or perceptions that could be had around that, but
yeah,
we were very close. It was us against the world, and it was really there's a lot of bonds around that, and we had a lot more time to spend together.
Right.
But I was out helping cut wood. I was out I was working with them all the time. I was the one, if they were out doing something that I couldn't be involved with, I was the one at home or at camp taking care of my sisters and my brother. And we read. I mean, that was my parents were they were really well read and always involved in discussions around politics or science or some avenue. So we were always reading books and learning. And that was our only go-to. We didn't have TV. Maybe we did every now and again, like a little battery. I remember this little thing that was like yay big. So for viewers, like a little 7-inch screen with some batteries. But that we would go to the library and just get massive stacks of books. And that's cool. I said candlelight and flashlight because that's what every evening was sitting there, reading. And so then there was always a big push on the intellectual side, which is why I ended up doing, I think, pretty well in school.
Mm-hmm. Did you go to traditional school or were they homeschooling you?
Went to traditional school.
Okay. Right on.
Yep. And that was interesting. I mean, that was challenging for me just because I was always moving. You show up to school, your clothes aren't clean, you might smell funny, definitely not in style. And so let alone like the internal drama that's going on in your mind going, I'm the kid living in a trailer down by the river, and you think everybody knows this stuff about you and is judging you. And so I can't say that I had the best childhood, going to school as a result of that. But by the time high school hit, I think I was starting to come into my own. I was realizing a lot of confidence because I was raised in a very physical environment.
Mm-hmm.
We were doing things all the time. And again, I was so well read. I was, years ahead in school. And so by the time I hit high school, I was starting to develop a lot of confidence in those arenas. And so I ended up excelling in both sports and academics. So I was, valedictorian. I was a state level athlete. So I was doing pretty good at that point in time, except, still maybe a little socially awkward, probably, I guess, as a result of that. So,
Right. Where do you bring the
yeah,
girl home when you don't have a home?
I
In
exactly. So
right.
high school, it was actually the first time we had a stable environment. So my stepfather, all this time that he had been raising me, which was my entire life, he'd had a broken arm, and he was running a chainsaw, feeding crops, doing all this sort of stuff with a broken arm, and it just kept wearing away. And he finally got a disability suit, got a few $1,000s, and put a down payment on a mobile home. So that happened like at the end of my freshman year in high school. So all through college or high school, for those 3 years, we didn't move. I had the same place. We had electricity, we had running water, and we had to throw plastic over the windows because it was cold and the wind would blow right through, and it didn't have doors in the house. So hung up, bed sheets, for the bathroom and bedrooms, and didn't have a kitchen. So, got some 2x4s and threw something up to put a sink on, and then, just stacked everything else all around the floor. And but it was a solid, stable place. It was a home, and that was the first long period like that
Mm.
in my life at that point.
Hmm. So, what sports did you get into in high school?
Well, the most interesting one is probably well, anybody that has an idea of you know my lifting background, but
Hmm.
is that I did cross country. I was like
Right.
one of the
That's
largest cross
interesting.
country runners in the state, and this is not one of the ones where I was a state level. I was like the worst person on our team by far. All the girls outran me. I was a big lumbering guy, but I was getting in shape for wrestling, and so
Right.
that was the one I really excelled at. I didn't start that till my freshman year, so I didn't have like a long history like a lot of wrestlers would.
Hmm.
But by the time I got to my senior year, I was horrible my freshman year. I lost every match the entire season up until the last two matches. I finally won two. By my senior year, I went all the way through districts, all the way through state, all the way up to the final match without even having a single offensive point scored against me.
No kidding.
So yeah, and then I ended up losing to the three-time state champion head game because I got too cocky and made some moves that I basically lost the match myself, which was unfortunate. But
Hmm.
and then track and field was the
Hmm.
third one I was in.
Okay.
And I was, district level. I wasn't state level there. I didn't understand like specificity.
Yeah.
So like I ran the 100, the 200, the 400, the 800, the 1500, the 3000. I did, I did, uh, I did long jump, shot put, javelin,
It must have been a
discus.
small team.
I did everything. And so I was pretty good at it, everything, but I didn't understand specialization because I was like, at the 400, I was running the mid 50s. Like if I just dropped a couple seconds off, all of a sudden you're like,
Yeah.
you're way up there. But I was also running the 3000. So it's like,
That's interesting. It's funny
yeah.
interesting that your coach didn't, nudge you toward a little bit
Well,
more
the
focus.
coach actually he had this Iron Man principle. And so he encouraged, and he had like a separate word for people that like made it through and competed in like everything in a season. And that was like kind of the approach that I took. And yeah, wasn't necessarily the best, but it gave me a lot of exposure, and I was pretty good at most of those things.
That's cool. So how did you get exposed to traditional weightlifting, powerlifting?
I got exposed to weightlifting in during the course of that. So junior high, I I started. Well, it was the typical, boy moving into teens. For me, I had a lot of self-confidence issues. I picked up some ankle weights down at the used goods store with some money I'd earned from mowing lawns. And then I scoured the nickel ads and bought some of those plastic cement covered weights. And the first year I just I think it was my freshman, I was seventh, eighth grade.
Wait, were
I'm
they
trying to remember.
plastic? Were they cement covered plastic or plastic covered cement?
The cement covered plastic ones with like the little hollow steel bar.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, I remember those. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like cement dumbbell type things. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. That's awesome.
So I started I started just doing like with jump squats and push-ups and running with the ankle weights. And then I, was making money from mowing lawns, started investing in those weights. And it was 1988. I think I was like 13 years old, 12 years old, when I started lifting. And then, when I got in high school, continued actually learning a little bit more about lifting, taking, PE classes with my track coach, who was he was a Olympic caliber, discus thrower back in the day, and
Okay.
shot putter. So he knew a lot about weightlifting, and that just like became part of my life. Like I started building a lot of confidence. It started having just like this big impact on me from a mental,
Hmm.
emotional perspective. And it was just something that became part of me. And it was like, for me at the time, I balanced it because I was the nerd. I was the straight A student that knew everything. Like I said, I read all the time, and it was the balance to that.
Hmm.
And my stepfather was really encouraging of it because he used to be an athlete back in the day. He was an artist, used to lift weights, and he loved that and always encouraged this behavior of like doing things with your hands,
Hmm.
being an individual that isn't just, a thinker, but can actually, you know, do something with their back as well.
Hmm.
And so it was, that type of mentality was encouraged quite some time. My mom was actually a really incredible athlete. Um, that's actually where I think my genetics came from, is my mom's side, not my father's side.
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, that became just a huge piece of mine. And I took a little bit of a break while I was going to college, and then I went right back to it. So maybe there's like a
Hmm.
year and a half in the late 90s that I didn't lift.
Hmm.
And then I got into competitive lifting in 2000. So yeah, just been with me forever.
That's fascinating. I'd love to talk a little bit about why you think weightlifting leads to increased confidence. Because it's more than just getting strong. There's certainly the spillover effect of, hey, I'm stronger, therefore I'm more confident. But there's, something to do with the focus, the concentration power, just getting under load. What do you think is going on in terms of why it makes you more confident?
It's one of those things where it teaches you that disciplined action over time
Yeah.
is going to yield results. If
Right.
I put in effort and I know that I've done this, I'm going to, no one can deny the fact that I'm physically stronger. I'm a more resilient person. I can see the changes in my body, and it's really empowering. I work quite a bit with Special Olympians,
Hmm.
and if you've ever worked with them, weightlifting, it's
I
actually
have.
one of the most powerful things that you can do for them, because so many times they're used to having, doing something, and it's like, it's the rah, you're doing great,
Yeah.
but no one has to, like, they know it's real.
Yeah.
And also the implications is it also helps them live a better quality of life to some level as you develop that. But
Yeah.
it's real, and it's massive to see the transition that goes on when you're working with Special Olympians over, a
Hmm.
period of time, and they see the results. They know that they're making improvement. That's
Hmm.
one of the, to me, is the it's really crazy to see that overseeing their participation in other activities. So
Hmm.
it's really cool. As a, you know getting back to your question, like for me specifically, in that arena of time, yeah, I think it does relate to the building the confidence of knowing that your actions can lead to change, that you
Hmm.
have control over, your body, that you can start seeing, like, I have a plan in place. Here's the next 3 months, and you start learning concepts like project management. For example, like, here's where I'm going to go. You develop a plan, you follow through on the plan.
Right.
Maybe you run into some problems along the way, but you overcome them,
Right.
and you work around that. And so you discover your ability to manage through, let's say, failure, or results that, aren't the way that you want, the desired outcome, that you can still come back around and make those change. I think weightlifting as a whole can tell you so much about life.
Yeah.
And we miss that connection. We just go to the gym. Oh, this is a thing that I need to do. Right. You
Right.
see the high powered business executive that comes in and they're flailing around. Their trainers got to get them dialed in. It's like, dude, you know how to manage a plan over time and not and how to set expectations and follow through, and things
I
don't
know.
happen quite. You know all this stuff. Execute it here. Then you also see the person that does so much in the gym, right? They've been there for years. They've had amazing results. They understand training and planning, all this sort of stuff, the mental aspects of it. But then they're a failure in their work life. And it's
Yeah.
like,
Isn't that
dude, you know
interesting?
how to do all this. Like, take how you approach the gym, like
Right.
the mental aspect of it, the plan, like all this, and shift that over to these other parts of your life.
Right. That's
And
fascinating.
yeah, people miss those connections, I
They
think.
miss them. Well, it's almost like a learned incompetence. And I agree. I had a CrossFit gym for 10 years, and, the strength training for us was just a big part of it. And I mean, I could have guys who were there for 5 or 6 years, and every time they come in, they acted like they'd never seen a weight before. You've had that too. Like, I have to show you how to do a deadlift again and again and again and again. And why don't you, aren't you picking up on this? And it's just this feeling of it's not my arena. So therefore I don't remember anything. I'm not planning. I'm just going to be told what to do. I think that's one of the flaws of a lot of coaches is they actually are okay with that because they're getting paid. But, I would fire people because you're not serious about this,
I
you know?
so one I don't have that experience because I wouldn't work with anybody like that.
There you
Um,
go. See, I was not that
I
smart.
consider it that person needs a dog trainer. They need
Right.
somebody to hold the leash and take them for a walk. And I believe that strength training should be empowering,
Yeah.
and you should be leading someone towards not needing you. And I'm talking about this
Right.
as a trainer, as a physical therapist, as a chiropractor, anybody that's working
Right.
in these fields. Like, the individual has the largest piece of power in overcoming and making the change their body, overcoming pain, all these sorts of
I
things.
agree.
And your job is to provide the education, the direction. It takes three things.
Hmm.
That's it. Those
Hmm.
three things is, the right methodology, the right tools, and the right mindset.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's it. And that's what
Right.
that's what it that's what a gym should be.
Right.
Those three things. And you teach that, and people they can own everything.
Right. Yeah. It's the non-ramp, and then off you go. Should be up to them. So, what led you into competing? And tell us a little bit about some of your experiences. When I read in the show notes that you have you're one of the few people, if not the only person, who's done 1,000-pound deadlift for repetition. And I didn't know that
One
was a
one
thing, but
one
that's
other
really
person
cool.
has done that now. So
Okay,
Thor from Game of Thrones,
I've
he's
heard
done
of Thor. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay,
yeah, he did 1,000 pounds for two, but he hasn't done 1,000 pound squat either. So I'm the only person that's squatted 1,000 pounds and deadlifted 1,000 pounds. So not a specialist.
right.
And I've done both for reps. And
Okay.
the deadlift is the standing Guinness World Record. So yeah, I've done
How
a
many
lot of
how many reps did you do those? The deadlift or the
both of
squat?
them for 3 reps.
3 reps.
Yep.
That's pretty extraordinary. So that to have that kind of muscular stamina under that load that's the unique aspect about that, right? Because usually it's one and
That
done. You're just done.
yeah. So that
Everything
and
goes
there
in and
was
done on that.
there was methodology to that. So
Okay.
what I teach is all about it's around it's around your body, right? So it's how do we best use it? How do we overcome pain? What are the principles? And so from a principle based approach, I look at what has the largest global impact on the body.
Hmm.
The thing that has the largest global impact is going to be your ability to manage your ability to manage and control your spinal mechanics.
Yes.
Second one behind that is the foot, which is why I have a shoe company and produce a lot of education around the foot. And then we can start breaking down. So a lot of my education is around breathing and bracing mechanics.
Hmm.
And what better way to articulate that than the squat and the deadlift? two
Mm-hmm.
basic primal movements.
Right.
The squat is one, if you understand from a developmental kinesiology standpoint, like our first 9 months as a child is learning these ingrained patterns in our head that are in everybody's nervous system. And it starts progressing, from rolling positions to crawling to standing. And then that's eventually basically us, you're able to move into the squat position.
Mm-hmm.
And be able to squat. It's fundamentally in everybody's neurology. So every able-bodied person should be able to do this. And under load, managing the spinal mechanics becomes, it demonstrates that.
Mm-hmm.
Deadlift is literally being able to pick something up off the ground.
Right.
Fundamental, every able-bodied person should be able to master picking up something from the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, these are the two most demanding. So that's where I chose that I wanted to go just over the top. I want to do 1,000 pounds for both of these, and I want to do it for reps. And the reps piece was doing it for a longer period of time puts more demand on the ability to control those resources.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So for me, 3 reps on a squat is about 30 seconds. That's incredible time to have that weight sitting on your back and controlling it through all of that, way more than just one repetition would be.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other reasons behind I call this the grand goals. I spent 5 years on it, but the biggest piece too is the inspiration. So one is demonstrate that walking the walk, showing that the principles that I teach, what you can accomplish with those. But the inspirational side is also just shooting for something that is just so nobody's ever done it. It's crazy. If I told people what I was going to do beforehand, I'd have been told I was crazy. There's no way you can do it. And just showing people that if you set your mind to it, you can pull off things that people think are impossible.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And then the last one was charity. So during those 5 years, I did a lot of feats of strength related to that as I built through that. Charity fundraisers for a lot of things that I believe in.
That is really neat. I applaud you for that. I have a connection to that, but it's not strength related. But as a SEAL, we like burpees because we didn't always have access to equipment, right? So, but wherever you go, there's your burpee, traveling companion.
Yep.
So, I started a program called Burpees for Vets, and in 2017 into 18, or 18 into 19, actually, we did 22 million burpees, my tribe, and so that required guys like me. I did 130,000 in the year, and others did around 100,000, and then I had a 6-person team where we had our world record was 6 people doing 3 men, 3 women doing burpees for 24 hours, and we did 36,393 burpees.
Damn.
Painful, but when you think of that, you're like, no, it's not possible to do 36,000 burpees.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. We just and our pace. You would understand this, but from the moment we started to the moment we end, nothing changed. Our pace was consistent because it was all mindset. It was all intention. We knew we were going to do it, and we just went and did it. It was fun.
Awesome.
So you raised money for charity, and that kind of, and then you moved out of that competition kind of and also demonstration phase into business. So what was that transition like? Or were you doing business kind of while you were doing the powerlifting?
Yeah. So that's a discussion I'll taper back a little ways because you talk about weightlifting, feats of strength. People are like, oh, that encompasses who you are, and that was I mentioned things were rough growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I went to college, and during the course of going to college, I took custody and raised my 3 younger sisters.
Oh, really?
While working on it.
What happened there? Like, what happened with the stepdad and the mom that you had to do that?
When I left the home, the first year and a half, 2 years of college, things that went south at home. So I had some sort of stabilizing force. I should have assumed so. I actually quit calling home because I was going to college, I was working, and every time I'd show up or make a call, I'd get requests for money. I'd have to give them money. And so I'm like, well, I just need to focus. And so I didn't contact as much, and things just went south. My mother had a mental breakdown, ended up out in Montana. Stepfather continued a descent into mental illness. And my sisters They were very young, ended up on the streets. And
Jeez.
so I took custody and I raised the three of them through their teenage years while I was doing that and pursuing my career.
Wow.
So ended up going to school for a dual engineering degree. Got my MBA as well while I was continuing working. I ended up being fairly successful in the, I guess, the leadership arena.
Mm-hmm.
So over the course of time, I ended up developing into a corporate executive that was known for turning around businesses.
Mm.
So I spent about 20 years doing that sort of stuff. The last 10 years, I was sought after. I'd come in and turn around like an aerospace manufacturing company or an automotive manufacturing company, high tech,
No kidding.
anything of that. So that's what I would do is go into troubled businesses, fix them, sometimes turn around and prep them for sale.
Mm-hmm.
So this poor kid from the sticks,
That's cool.
had this, imagine that moving to this executive level,
Yeah.
doing those sorts of things. At the same time, getting there, I've got a house with a white picket fence, two kids. My sisters have all moved on by that point in time. I've, raised them into adulthood, and I'm going, I'm still missing something in life. I owned a gym on the side. So I had a 9,000 square foot gym that I'd built a lot of the equipment in, specialized it. And I'm just like, I know that I should be doing more. And I was putting out educational content online because I was a fairly well-known strength athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And, and the stuff that I did was having such a huge impact, around the globe, like people watching it, getting out of pain, change, and I'm like, I have something here
Mm-hmm.
that I want to share, and I could be doing so much more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I loved in business. It wasn't, doing the turnaround of the company. Turning around a company is about making change to people on an individual level, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
delivering, empowering people, getting them to step outside of what they think is possible and seeing that they can accomplish. You start doing this stuff one-on-one, and that's what changes an organization. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's what I loved about it. I'm like, this is where I need to go. I need to, as a whole, shift my entire life around helping people focus on development of
Mm-hmm.
resilience of body, mind, soul, right?
Mm-hmm.
My professional expertise at this point is definitely on the physical nature of it. And that's where,
Mm-hmm.
so in 2015, I launched Kabuki Strength with my business partner, Rudy Cadleb. So
Mm-hmm.
we own the gym together, and I was the first employee, and it's grown pretty significantly from there. So it's, right now we work with, let's see, 99% of all Major League Baseball teams, about 90%
Really?
of the rest of the NFL, NBA. Uh, uh, we 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 got Tour de France teams. We got we're
So what is it
in
you do?
professional
Like, what's
sports.
your
We're
sweet spot?
um, our sweet spot is definitely in the professional area. Is the the big ones, the MLB, NBA, and NFL. So
Teaching
those are.
strength, like teaching lifts or providing mobility, or what specifically are you doing for these people, these teams?
Um, I have numerous patents on
Mm-hmm.
products
I see.
that improve biomechanics, and they're based on the principles that we teach. So there's an education arm of the business.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a number of coaches. They produce content on a daily basis. They travel and do seminars. They do private seminars for the teams. And then the products. We have a manufacturing company here in Portland. I've got about 40,000 square feet of CNC equipment and automated cells where we're producing the best biomechanically sound barbells and equipment in the world. And so these products are things that people have never seen before. So they're new in the industry, but they allow us to remove the negative stresses, the stresses that we can't adapt to by, being forced into positions, being forced to work with the equipment that isn't built around how the body is meant to operate, and allows us to be able to accommodate for
Mm.
differences in lever links, mobility, training needs, and so on. So those products include the Transformer bar, the only bar in the world that you can manipulate someone's spinal mechanics.
How does
The
that work?
Cadillac. How does it work?
Yeah. How does the transformer work?
The transformer bar is the load shifts around. So actually what that does is the load actually stays over the midfoot.
Right. Okay.
So you're actually manipulating the spine, creating spinal uprighting.
Mm-hmm.
It's so I could mimic like a goblet squat. You've
Mm-hmm.
got a training background. You
Yeah.
put that in someone's hands. What happens? We've got a better diaphragm to pelvis relationship.
Mm-hmm.
We've got better engagement of the thoracolumbar musculature and abdominal musculature to create better bracing mechanics. We've got again that alignment of diaphragm and pelvis coming into play. So it
Mm-hmm.
automatically gets people in better position. All of a sudden, their squats get better, but you
Oh yeah,
can't load it because
that's
your
cool.
chest, your
So
shoulders, and your biceps are the limiting factor. So it's
right.
just
So
a
instead
cueing.
of trying to adapt your body to the load will adapt itself to the body a
Yep.
little bit.
So mine frees up, and we can move this weight around
Yeah.
in space instead of this one arbitrary
Yeah.
spot.
Yeah.
And so now you can customize this for anybody's needs. You can change how we load so you can think about it as a squat. It's a squat bar that is like a machine at the same time.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
there's nothing like it in the world.
Does it have
The
like
cattle.
like a harness? Not a harness, but like a. Does it rest on the shoulders with a weight above it, or
It
how does it?
looks similar to a safety squat bar,
Yeah,
executed better, but the distance from center and the rotation all allow you to shift that load around.
that's fascinating. Very
Yeah.
cool. And what's the
Uh,
Cadillac?
the Cadillac bar is similar to like a multi grip bar,
Mm-hmm.
but like a multi grip or Swiss bar for pressing. This one, I call it playground physics, but you walk into a playground and a teeter totter. It's always sitting on one side or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And that is because the balance point is this infinitely perfect spot, which means you can't ever find it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a Swiss bar or multi grip bar that's always going to be destabilized in your wrist and trying to, go back and crush your face. So mine's curved. The weight drops down below the hands. So it's like a swing. Whereas a swing sit automatically finds center because center of rotation is above center of mass. Playground physics.
Right.
A teeter totter, they're both on the same plane, which means it's infinitely unstabilized. Have the same concept employed in our neutral grip deadlift bar, which has variability for width and height, but the neutral handle position that everybody hates, they don't know why they hate it. It's because it is on center of mass, center of rotation. Ours is offset a little bit. Ours is open so you can walk into it. Whole lot of other features that just make it better executed than anything else. The Q-bell, the smarter dumbbell. Actually, we play with leverages that
Mm-hmm.
allow that you to have the same weight in your hand, but you can make the load different. So imagine being able to train for like 15, 20 minutes, 3-4 different exercises and never having to stop. Your time under tension goes way up. The metabolic effect goes up. We can loop things together. We can do all
Mm-hmm.
sorts of things. I could actually change the force curve of a muscle. So instead of a curl being really easy at the bottom and not developing the force till you get up to like 90 degrees, we can change it so you can actually have similar force at the bottom matching the peak. So there's tons of things you can do with it with leverages that nobody really understood before and implemented in a handheld way. Completely change it. The
Excellent.
Kratos flywheel system is a pulley-based product built on inertia instead of weight. Really incredible. So anyway, that's what I do. I have a manufacturing company. I have design engineers. I have an education team that handles the coaching and education, all built around these principles around movement and loading to allow people to be able to develop physical resilience, limiting the amount of pain or dysfunction from that with
Mm-hmm.
the best biomechanically sound products out there.
Yeah. Is there any or are these products that an individual can just go to your website and purchase, or are they really geared toward the professional organization?
These are ones everyone should be training with.
Yeah, I'm
Down to
asking
your
kind of for myself because that dumbbell sounds pretty damn cool. I'm gonna go get
yeah,
one for Christmas.
down to a 65-year-old grandmother that's never touched a weight in her life.
That's awesome.
That's in back pain.
Right.
Our stuff is used by the professional sports teams because those coaches understand the principles.
Yeah.
So I had the fastest and highest penetration because
Mm-hmm.
I take it to them and they go, this. This
Yeah,
is legit.
you're only 6 years old. That's incredible, actually. I think.
And you get introductions, and next thing you know, you're working with 29 of the 30 Major League Baseball teams.
Right.
Like, I because our stuff is really foundational things,
Right.
but reinvented, but it's for everyone.
Is there anyone out there
Everyone.
who's doing anything like you're doing in terms of the innovation?
No, there is no other company that has a principle-based approach to creating products.
Mm-hmm.
They are looking at market analysis, going, what sells? What can I create that is going to sell? Versus the lens that we look at it is through the training or clinical aspect of what's out there, how does it fit in truly the principles of how the body works, how training should be done, how rehab should be done, and what are the gaps to allow us to be able to have that accomplished. And then all of a sudden, now you start seeing the gaps and the opportunities for products. So
Right.
no one else is out there, because there's education companies and there's equipment companies.
Right.
Now, the equipment companies go copy us
Mm.
because that's all they're good at.
Right.
People go, what's your market analysis for creating a new product? Well, I have none, because they don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
I just know what needs to be out there. What are the gaps? What have I used? How am I going to accomplish things that no one else in the world's ever done? Well, I did it by using this stuff.
Yeah. That's
And
cool.
yeah.
I noticed, leadership is one of my passions, and I'm actually went back to school to challenge myself to get my PhD in leadership at Pepperdine. So I just started that. I finished my first semester the other day. That was interesting, painful experience, but it'll get better. At any rate, so I noticed you're chief visionary officer and not CEO of your own company. And I got to tell you, I tried that with my company and it didn't work. I went through 2 CEOs and finally I'm back in as CEO. What, maybe you're a better hirer, or maybe your partner is the CEO. Is that why it's working for you?
My partner is the CEO.
Okay.
And so if he wasn't there, maybe I'd have some of those struggles. Obviously, in my role as visionary, I have a lot of influence
Right.
on that, and
Mm-hmm.
that's my job. But I don't, to free up what I need to have from
Yeah.
the creative side of things, the
Right.
being able to see this future, and then how do I create that into reality now? How do I invent products? How do we align services? How do we do this? Managing the day-to-day operations, I'm involved in it
Yeah.
every day, but actually being the one that manages it, I did that before. That's what I
Yeah.
did for 20 years. I'm really competent at it, but I can't do both.
Right.
And I've tried, and I cannot do it.
Right. Yeah. If you didn't have your partner, then you would just need an exceptional chief operating officer who basically
Yep.
did the same shit. You know what I mean? Allowed you
Yep.
to be
Yep.
visionary. That's kind of what I'm working on. What we got to wrap up soon. This has been fascinating, and I'm curious about like what's the next 20 years hold for you, Chris. What's your vision for the future? How are you going to make an impact in the world beyond
Yeah.
what you're already doing, which is pretty cool?
Yeah. So I try to tie together everything that's been in my world into products and services that I offer. So I have launched a couple other companies, but I'm going to try to not do that anymore. But Barefoot, BEAR. So imagine a kid running around in the woods with bears,
Right.
shoeless. That was me. We make the best in minimalist footwear out there, and
Nice.
it's just absolutely incredible stuff. My supplementation is through Build Fast Formula.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to start seeing these kind of wrap together into the more of an integrated fold.
Mm-hmm.
And then the future for Kabuki Strength is the integration of the clinical side as well, formally, with what we do, the products, and then start the completion of the reinvented gym. And so
Mm-hmm.
imagine the reinvented gym paired together with the technology for the data acquisition that feeds into the coaching. So be able to look at barbell velocity, HRV, all those components to create one cohesive ecosystem that that we can manage. And hey, we fall outside of the norm. Here's a clinical professional that actually understands exactly what you're doing, how to get you back to that as quick as possible, because load provides that. So I want to create a complete ecosystem of education, training tools, and data as it relates to the technology and art of coaching, all the equipment that can reinvent this gym, built on, again, based on accommodation for variability and mobility, leverages, training needs, as well as clinical care. And so that's
cool.
I want to change the face of fitness all the way through with its integration with clinical care.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Might be a little hard to articulate all that in a podcast, what that looks like.
No, you don't have to. And nor, it's like we said in the
and everything that I'm working on are just little pieces. Like when I started Kabuki Strength, people are like, oh, you're a powerlifting company. And I'm like, yeah, I used to powerlift. Okay. And then we'll start doing more. Oh, you're a specialty barbell company. And then I come out with the soft tissue tools and the, dumbbells and a flywheel. And they're like, no, we're a human performance company. And I'm building all the things that don't exist for me to create that bigger picture vision. They're not random things. They're not things because I think it's going to sell. They're missing pieces of this ecosystem.
Right. Yeah. And largely you can't create the whole picture because you have the vision, but the component parts don't exist yet. The technology is still to be developed, some by you and some by others. But holding that vision and driving toward it, the pieces will start to fall into place.
So a couple other things real quick. So my book, The Eagle and the Dragon.
Yeah.
Check it out. So it is an incredible story that was really helpful for anybody. It's written for the reader. I also have another book coming out next year on goal setting, execution.
Oh, nice.
And
when's that due out?
And leadership. Yeah. I plan on having the manuscript completed in April, and then maybe a few more months before it hits the market. So,
hit me up when you're ready to launch that. Either have you back on, or we'll help you promote that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to send you, if I have your email, a trailer for a movie that'll be coming out early this spring as well. Grand Goals. So it's a documentary that was being filmed. Check it out. So anybody that's follow my social media, the trailer will be dropping here probably within the next month.
Right.
For a pretty epic piece.
What are your social media handles, Chris?
It might be easiest if the best point of contact. So is to go to my website, just chrisduffin.com.
Right.
And there's links to Kabuki Strength, Barefoot, Build
Perfect.
Fast, all my other stuff. And I will sign up for the email list on there, and I'll send you the first half of my book for free.
That's
no strings attached, along with discount codes for all the companies, so exclusive ones, and some exclusive like free educational content. So Chris Duffin, it's like muffin but with a D. Okay. All right, it's easy to remember that way.
Yeah,
the handles I don't know. Just type in Chris Duffin, and I have the little blue check thing. The ones I interact on the most would be Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
Right. Awesome, Chris. Appreciate your time today. Thanks for everything you're doing. It's an incredible story. And man, your work you're doing is fantastic. I can't wait to learn more. chrisduffin.com. I'm going to go sign up. I'll be on your newsletter, Chris. And I'll make sure you have my email through my assistant, whoever set this up. And let's connect again when your next book comes out, because people need to know that how to do goal setting better and learn from your methodology. So once again, I appreciate your time. And
thank you.
Have an amazing 2022, my friend. Hoo-yah.